In the Absolute Universe, the Green Lanterns aren't a cosmic police force. They're more like pilgrims on a path to enlightenment. In a universe shaped by Darkseid, there are no Guardians of the Universe, no core, and no emotional spectrum of light to speak of. Instead, the different colours of light represent a philosophy. Cord, the black flame of chaotic action. Rao, the red flame of restraint. Sur, the green flame of correct action. And Or, the golden flame, total understanding. It is an elegant idea compromised by the fact that the universe was designed by a god who mistakes control for harmony. And this story began in Evergreen, a small town defined by tradition, conformity, and institutional rot. When the alien Abin Sur arrived, he isolated the town and methodically tore through them as if he were passing judgment on them. What seemed like a massacre was something closer to a personality test though, with the universe selecting candidates for a wider conflict involving the Black Stars, bearers of the Black Flame, and Mogo, the living planet at their centre. Among those caught in Evergreen were Jo Mullein, Hal Jordan, and John Stewart. They discovered that this enlightened green flame had limits though. It faltered before yellow and gold. When Jo's wedding ring absorbed Abin Sur's power, everything went to hell. Evergreen was flattened and Hal Jordan crossed a line he could never step back from by killing Abin Sur. That single act bound Hal to the Black Flame, transforming him into a Black Star. Though Jo would later free him, the damage had been done. As the scale narrowed, the story turned inward. Jo's upbringing in Evergreen revealed a life shaped by compromise and disappointment. And as an adult, Jo left Evergreen, building a new life in Coast City where she fell in love with Cameron Chase, a DEO agent whose devotion to her work left little room for anything else. Their relationship collapsed under the weight of neglect, resentment, and betrayal, and frankly, they both played their part. In the present, Jo returns, seeking shelter with the woman she once hurt. Their reunion is tense and unresolved, reopening old wounds just as new questions about Jo's powers begin to surface. Meanwhile, at Evergreen, unscrupulous billionaire Hector Hammond pours through the wreckage of the town, scooping up the protoplasmic remains of Abin Sur and Hal Jordan's discarded curse, as well as the kidnapped sole survivor, Todd Rice. With what his scientists were able to piece together and Rice's testimony, Hammond tracked down Jo and sent one of his top men after her. An assassin, wearing another man's face and calling himself Goldface, arrived with weapons designed to exploit the light's weaknesses. At the end of the last issue, he left Jo gravely wounded, alive but bleeding and very much not safe. And this issue primarily focuses on Jo's struggle to stay alive. Goldface is pretty cavalier, casually asking for a soda before resuming his interrogation. Jo may be down, but she's not out though, so she plays possum, waiting for the right moment to strike by stabbing Goldface between the legs. Ouch. This gives her enough time to crawl to the kitchen, where she melts the door handle and painfully pulls the golden bullets out with pliers. The green light may be ineffective against anything yellow or gold, but she can still interact with other objects like the pliers and launch them straight into Goldface's head, killing him instantly. It's at this time that DEA agents Simon Baz and Kari Limbo arrive. Seeing Hal Jordan still passed out on the sofa and a long trail of blood, they assume the worst. Jo doesn't recognise Baz, what with his mask, and wouldn't you know it, the pair come to blows over the misunderstanding. Baz assumed that the blood belonged to his former partner Cameron Chase, a reasonable assumption given that it was her apartment, and all he knows of Jo is that she's the woman that broke Chase's heart. Now she's seemingly possessed by some weird green energy. It's understandable why he might think that she was hostile. Once Limbo says his name out loud though, the penny drops for Jo. They are not working with Goldface, they're entirely unconnected. And it's at this point that Chase turns up absolutely fine and casually walks into the devastation, asking what had happened to her apartment. After a brief recap of how Goldface got in, Agent Limbo offers to try to use her psychic powers on his corpse. Now, she's not exactly a mind-reading psychic, but she can get readings off of objects, and what is a dead body if not an object? Making contact with Goldface's corpse tells them everything they need to know. She sees the assassinations and the man who ordered them, Hector Hammond. The man that Chase believes has been paying off her boss, Agent Double, a fitting name for a double-crosser. And speaking of Hammond, oh boy, he has been busy. The opening of the issue showed us how he had placed a recuperating Todd Rice in a containment tank. In the darkness, the same voice from the void called out to Todd, telling him that his position on the Enlightenment spectrum was unknown. He is told to be without fear, for the Black Stars have their eyes on him. As I mentioned earlier, Hammond's team were the ones that found Rice in the wreckage of Evergreen, and how Hammond had personally withheld treatment until Rice told him everything he knew. He witnessed Hal Jordan killing Abin Sur and Joe's gold ring draining his powers. Now that he has all the information he needs, Hammond decides to put him to use in another way, essentially drowning him in the black goop that was left behind when Abin Sur died and when Hal was purged of the Black Hand. They have about 200 gallons, which is just over 900 litres for those of us that use the metric system, of the material, and they plan on leaving Rice to marinate in it to see what happens. Just a small amount of that black goop turned Hal into a Black Hand, so what would submerging someone in it do? At the issue's end, we're told exactly what happened. Rice has become a hulking beast, codenamed Obsidian. Now, where the mainline Obsidian has powers as a result of his father's exposure to the Shadowlands, and famously struggled with his mental health, the Absolute Obsidian is a mindless monster, which is completely in keeping with many of the other characters in this universe. Hammond scientists confirm that he is alive and moving, but there's no discernible brain activity. They are anxious to share the news with Hammond, thinking that it'll disappoint him and that they will suffer for it. But Hammond is delighted. This is exactly what he wanted, a mindless drone with incredible power that he can use as he sees fit, and you just know that he has nothing good in mind. Absolute Green Lantern number 10 is available now from all good comic shops. If you're opposed to the idea of cluttering up your home with comic books, then you can get this comic digitally from places like Amazon as well as Neon Ichiban, a new digital comic retailer from the founders of Comixology. Personally, I prefer physical comics, but I do love the convenience of having thousands of comics accessible from my phone, but you do what works best for you. For those that are interested in how my physical collection is coming along, well, it finally happened. We had to upgrade to a bigger storage unit. I spent a good chunk of my Christmas break moving my collection to the new place, and oh lord, I'm tired. I've still got about 15 boxes to go before I'm done. Won't anyone think of my poor aching back? Next time. I'll be back early next week to talk about Batman number 5, where Bruce Wayne and Dr. Zeller's night out gets interrupted by a new villain, the Ojo, formerly known as Lady Deathman. And due to some recent scheduling reshuffling, there won't be any Absolute comics out until the last week of January, when 4 of them drop at once. I'll be back then to talk about Absolute Batman 16, which sees Batman going to Wonder Woman in search of a mystical cure for Waylon Jones. And then, speaking of Wonder Woman, I'll be talking about Absolute Wonder Woman 16, which features the official debut of Absolute Zatanna. Next will be the Absolute Martian Manhunter number 8, where the mysterious agency descends on the town of Middleton. And finally, I'll be talking about Absolute Flash number 11, where the Flash finds himself trapped in the bizarre Still Force. Hope to see you then.